from Bye Bye Bernie to the Flintstones, and of course co-starring with Elvis in Viva Las Vegas. Ann-Margret has had an incredibly steady career in Hollywood spanning 6 decades. For 60 years, Ann-Margret kept quiet about Elvis Presley. But in 2025, she finally broke her silence. She revealed a deathbed promise they made in 1964, a secret note delivered 3 weeks before he died, and words his father whispered at the funeral that changed everything. The world thought they knew the Elvis story. They were wrong. What she's saying now about their hidden love affair is rewriting Hollywood history, and some people wish she had never spoken at all. Ann-Margret was born on April 28, 1941, in a tiny freezing village in northern Sweden called Valjean. It was so close to the Arctic Circle that winter lasted 8 months and the temperatures dropped to -40. Her family lived in a one-room wooden cabin with no electricity or water. They had to walk outside in the snow just to use the toilet. The closest doctor was 50 miles away, and the only way to get there in winter was by a horse-drawn sleigh. Her father, Carl Gustav Olsson, worked in a lumber mill and made just 2 kroner a day, about $12 today. Everyone in the village shared what little they had. Clothes were passed around from family to family, and Margaret wore hand-me-downs from at least 3 other kids. In 1946, when she was just 5 years old, she got very sick. Pneumonia hit her so hard she lay unconscious for 6 days with a fever of 104. Her lips turned blue. She could barely breathe. There was no hospital nearby, so her mother Anna had to try everything she could at home. Pine needle tea, hot stones wrapped in cloth, even alcohol rubs. For 3 weeks, her mother stayed awake, only resting for a few minutes at a time. On day 19, the fever finally broke. But Ann-Margret couldn't walk for another month. Her mother carried her everywhere until she slowly got her strength back. That same year, something unexpected happened. At a village wedding, 6-year-old Ann-Margret started singing out of nowhere. Her voice was so strong and clear that the room went silent. People said she sounded like a famous opera singer. They even nicknamed her Little Caruso. Word spread fast. In just 6 months, she was asked to sing at 47 different events, weddings, funerals, church gatherings. She sometimes earned 5 kroner a show. Her mother made all her costumes by hand from scrap fabric. Some took 40 hours to sew. By the time she was 7, she had memorized over 200 songs, all without reading any music. But during those early years, life wasn't easy. In 1942, when Ann-Margret was just 14 months old, her father left Sweden alone to find work in America. He ended up in Chicago, earning $18 a week at Johnson Electrical. He left behind only 50 kroner, about $300 today, and no way to talk to them. Because of the war, mail was slow, and he only sent 3 letters in 4 years. Her mother, Anna, had to raise her alone, sewing clothes for 12 hours a day for just 1 krona, while trying to survive the brutal winters. One winter, she even had to sell her husband's accordion and hunting rifle just to buy fuel and bread. In 1946, Carl finally sent for them. Ann-Margret and her mother crossed the Atlantic on the SS Gripsholm. It took 11 days. The ship was packed with 1,547 passengers, many of them refugees and children who had survived concentration camps. The sea was rough, the cabins were crowded, and 30-foot waves hit the ship during a storm. Radar broke and they had to use a compass to stay on course. Ann-Margret, sick with seasickness, still sang songs in the dining hall. People clapped and gave her $47 in tips. They reached New York on November 18, 1946. Her father was waiting. That same day, he took her to see the Rockets at Radio City Music Hall. Ann-Margret looked up at the stage and told him, "That's what I want to do." They moved to Wilmette, Illinois, and things didn't get easier. She didn't speak English and was bullied for her accent. Kids laughed at her. She sat alone during lunch for months. To learn English, she copied the radio announcers' voices for hours until her throat hurt. By 1949, she became a U.S. citizen. That same year, at age 8, she started piano lessons. After only 3 weeks, she wrote her first song. Her teacher was shocked and got her a paid performance at church, where she earned $5. Her mother made her a blue velvet dress, sewing late at night to get it ready. Over 200 people showed up. In 1950, disaster hit again. Her father hurt his back at work and couldn't move for 8 months. He got only $23 a week in disability. Her mother found work as a receptionist at a funeral home for $32 a week. Their rent was $45. To help, Ann-Margret babysat for 50 cents a night. She still dreamed of dancing, but her parents said no. They couldn't afford it. She practiced in secret, using a cracked mirror she bought for $25. She even watched lessons through a dance studio window and memorized every move. Her mother found her worn-out shoes and confronted her. It turned into their first real argument. In the summer of 1953, she did something bold. She secretly paid $2 to enter the Lake County Fair Talent Contest. She was 12. Her dance was inspired. by burlesque star Gypsy Rose Lee, complete with hip movements and flowing fans. She wore a red church dress, but had altered it herself. The crowd of 500 was shocked. Some people clapped, others were furious. She won first place and $10, about $110 today. A newspaper ran the headline, "Swedish Girl Shocks Fair Crowd." Suddenly, everyone knew her name. By 1957, in her final year of high school at New Trier, she formed a singing group called the Subtle Tones with 3 classmates. They performed at school dances, drawing crowds of 300 teens. Her wild hip twists and hair flips became her signature. They made $15 a show, split 4 ways, and she kept her 3.75 a secret from her parents. Their name spread, and they got booked at a Chicago club and were even promised a shot in Las Vegas. That spring, during the talent show, her solo performance of Rock Around the Clock made the crowd scream so loudly the principal had to calm them down. One student, future actor Bruce Dern, later said she hypnotized the whole room. She was voted most likely to become famous. In 1960, after just 1 year at Northwestern University, she shocked her family again. She left school and traveled with her group to Vegas for a gig that didn't happen. Her friends went back to college, and Margaret didn't. With only $50 in her pocket, she hitchhiked to Los Angeles. Her parents were crushed. They had saved for years to send her to college. Her father, who worked multiple jobs to bring the family to America, couldn't believe she gave it all up. She had been studying speech and drama. Everyone thought she'd play it safe. But something big happened. She got a singing job in a rough Vegas lounge. One night, comedian George Burns saw her. He added her to his Christmas show at the Sahara. That led to a deal with RCA Records. Her first song, Lost Love, flopped. It didn't chart. Critics said she sounded too mature and sexual for someone just 19. RCA almost dropped her, but George Burns stepped in and begged them to give her one more chance. In 1961, she made her movie debut in Pocket Full of Miracles. But behind the scenes, there was trouble. She clashed with B. Davis, who was trying to revive her career. When Glenn Ford said he helped Davis get the role, she snapped, calling him names. Davis called Ann-Margret an upstart. They fought over dressing rooms. The director, Frank Capra, was stuck in the middle. It was chaos. Then came April 9, 1962. At the Oscars, Ann-Margret performed Bachelor in Paradise. She turned what was supposed to be a normal performance into a fiery, sexy dance routine that made the whole room sit up. TV censors were caught off guard, but someone else was watching Elvis Presley's manager. Soon after, she got the offer to co-star in Viva Las Vegas. That one TV performance changed everything. It launched her movie career and led to one of Hollywood's most talked about romances. In 1962, Ann-Margret recorded a song called I Just Don't Understand for her album, On the Way Up. What nobody knew was that this song would quietly change music history forever. It was recorded on May 9, 1961, in Nashville at RCA Studio B. The sound of the guitar was distorted in a way no one had heard before. It happened by mistake. An engineer pushed the equipment too far, but instead of fixing it, they kept it. From Bye Bye Bernie to the Flintstones and of course Coast. With Elvis and Viva Las Vegas, Ann-Margret has had an incredibly steady career in Hollywood spanning 6 decades. For 60 years, Ann-Margret kept quiet about Elvis Presley. But in 2025, she finally broke her silence. She revealed a deathbed promise they made in 1964, a secret note delivered 3 weeks before he died, and words his father whispered at the funeral that changed everything. The world thought they knew the Elvis story. They were wrong. What she's saying now, about their hidden love affair, is rewriting Hollywood history. And some people wish she had never spoken at all. Ann-Margret was born on April 28, 1941, in a tiny freezing village in northern Sweden called Val. It was so close to the Arctic Circle that winter lasted 8 months and the temperatures dropped to -40. Her family lived in a one-room wooden cabin with no electricity or water. They had to walk outside in the snow just to use the toilet. The closest doctor was 50 miles away, and the only way to get there in winter was by a horse-drawn sleigh. Her father, Carl Gustav Olsson, worked in a lumber mill and made just $1 a day, about $12 today. Everyone in the village shared what little they had. Clothes were passed around from family to family, and Margaret wore hand-me-downs from at least 3 other kids. In 1946, when she The fuzzy sound came from a homemade pedal built by Red Rhodes, and it was played by Billy Strange. This raw, aggressive tone shocked the music world. It didn't sound clean, and that was exactly why it felt so alive. The song shot to number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 15 on the Cashbox, and number 10 on Record World. Time magazine said she was the kind of singer who could make a song really pop. Billboard gave her album 4 stars and called her voice playful and sexy. That one accident with the guitar would later inspire bands like the Beatles, who covered the song just a year later in 1963. But that same year, 1963, her life behind the camera wasn't so smooth. While filming Bye Bye Birdie, she had to shoot a clothes-changing scene 17 times. Her body was pushed to the edge. She lost 10 pounds just trying to keep up. The costumes kept falling apart during the fast dancing, and the director kept saying, "One more time." The set was dangerous, too. They had her dancing on a moving treadmill 20 feet off the ground with heavy wind machines blowing right at her. She was terrified and exhausted, but she kept going. When the movie finally premiered at Radio City Music Hall, it made more money in its first week than any film ever had there. Life magazine said her dancing was so fiery it could replace central heating. But all that heat came at a price. Right after that, she was forced into a grueling promotional tour. She visited 20 cities doing non-stop interviews, dances, and appearances. Her body couldn't take it. She collapsed from exhaustion She'd lost over 15 pounds in just 2 weeks, barely eating and relying on pills the studio doctors gave her to keep her awake. She was rushed to the hospital and Columbia Pictures had to stop the tour for a while. But within days, she was back on stage. No rest, no break. Just that same unstoppable drive that would carry her through a 60-year career. Later that year, she did something that stunned TV audiences. She appeared on the Flintstones as Ann-Margret, but instead of a simple cartoon parody, it was her real voice. She sang sweet lullabies and bold rock songs. The cartoons showed two sides of her at once. One, a humble babysitter. The other, a glamorous star. It was one of the first times a real celebrity ever became a cartoon version of themselves on TV. People were amazed. TV Guide even took behind-the-scenes photos of her in the recording booth. It felt like she had stepped out of reality and into another world. In 1963, something even more shocking happened. After winning a Golden Globe as New Star of the Year, Ann-Margret was offered a $1 million deal from 20th Century Fox. That's like $9.5 million today. But she turned it down. She didn't want to be trapped playing young, silly roles for years. Most actors would have taken the money without thinking. But not her. Just 1 year later, she was invited to sing at President John F. Kennedy's 46th birthday. She sang Baby, Won't You Please Come Home in the same ballroom where Marilyn Monroe had famously sung to JFK the year before. That one choice to walk away from the money turned into something far bigger, respect. In March 1964, she met Elvis Presley on the set of Viva Las Vegas. The moment they danced to The Lady Loves Me, something sparked between them. Elvis leaned in and said, "You're the female me." Their rhythm matched, their energy clicked, and soon they were spending every night together after filming. He even stopped hanging out with his usual group. His friends said they had never seen him connect with someone like that. It was deep. It was fast. It was real. But their closeness worried Colonel Parker, Elvis's manager. The movie had a $4.3 million budget, and Parker feared the romance would steal the spotlight. During filming, the two of them rode motorcycles through the desert. She had a Triumph 500cc, and he had a custom Harley. One hot evening in May 1964, Elvis's bike broke down 12 miles outside Vegas. With no one around, Ann-Margret drove them both back on her bike, Elvis clinging behind her. He begged her never to tell anyone. It didn't fit the macho image, but in private, they were just two people trying to escape fame. They'd stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning, talking in the hills. That was when Elvis shared his fears, his struggles, his secrets. She said those moments were when she saw the real man, not the icon. By August 1964, the world started catching on. Ann-Margret told the British press they were engaged, hoping Elvis would finally choose her. It wasn't true, but she was desperate. Then rumors started flying about a pregnancy. Columnist Luella Parsons printed it without checking. Back in Memphis, Priscilla was furious. She threw a $200 surface across the room and screamed at Elvis. He told her, "Things like this might happen. Are you going to deal with it or not?" The studio panicked. They threatened to cancel Elvis's next 3 films worth $3.5 million. By October, Elvis broke things off with Ann-Margret for good. The letters stopped. The calls ended. She had played a risky game, and it backfired. But Elvis couldn't let her go completely. From 1967 to 1977, before every single show she did in Vegas, Elvis sent a 6ft tall guitar made of flowers. Each one costs around $500 to $800, which today would be about $4,000 to $6,400. He sent 127 of them, totaling nearly $64,000. Each one came with the same note, "Best of luck from Elvis and the Colonel." But everyone knew it was really just from Elvis. The last floral guitar came just 3 weeks before he died in August 1977. That one had a private note. She never showed it to anyone. She kept it hidden for 20 years. In 1966, she shot a movie called The Swinger. There was a scene where she had to roll around in 176 gallons of colored paint, wearing only a skin-tone bikini. Some states tried to ban the movie. Paramount had to make different versions to satisfy censors. She stood by the scene, saying she never went nude and never used obscene language. but she knew her dancing always pushed limits. The film opened in New York on December 14, 1966, and it became a sensation. Then on September 10, 1972, disaster struck. She fell 22 feet from a platform during a show in Lake Tahoe. Over 1,200 people watched as she slammed into the concrete. Her face was shattered, jaw broken, left arm broken, a massive gash on her knee. She was rushed to Reno, where surgeons worked for 7 hours. Her jaw was wired shut for 10 weeks. Friends carried wire cutters around her in case she choked, and somehow, just 10 weeks later, she was back on stage. In 1968, she went to Vietnam to perform for the troops. While flying to Phu Bai, her helicopter came under fire. Bullets pierced the metal around her. Soldiers threw their bodies over her to protect her. She came home with nightmares and PTSD, but she kept going. She performed for over 20,000 soldiers in Saigon alone. That experience changed how she saw war forever. In 1971, she shocked critics again with Carnal Knowledge. Her performance alongside Jack Nicholson was raw and painful. She cried, screamed, and laid herself bare on screen. The film was banned in places, including Albany, Georgia. That ban went all the way to the Supreme Court in 1974. The court ruled the film was protected art. She earned an Oscar nomination. People finally saw she was more than just a pinup. Broadway offered her $500,000 to star in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, but only if she agreed to full nudity. She turned it down. She said nudity would take away from the story. Others might have taken the money. She chose her dignity. She married actor Roger Smith. On May 8, 1967, she cried during the ceremony because it wasn't what she pictured. Roger was already sick with a disease called myasthenia gravis. He had collapsed once with a blood clot on his brain. By 1971, he was declining fast, and Margaret became his caregiver, hiding it from the public. On November 10, 1972, another fall nearly ended her life. She dropped 22 feet during her opening night in Lake Tahoe. Her face was swollen, broken, and bleeding. She fell into a coma. Roger, sick himself, stole a plane to fly her to UCLA Medical Center. Her jaw was wired shut. Friends were told to carry cutters in case of emergencies. Between 1970 and 1975, she had 3 miscarriages. She never talked about them publicly until 1987. She spent over $100,000 on fertility treatments. She felt like she failed Roger, who already had children. The heartbreak led her into depression and drinking. Roger stopped acting and became her manager. He helped her earn millions, but by 1976, his illness affected his thinking. He made bad investments that cost them over $2 million. She had to sell jewelry and property. It nearly ruined them. By 1978, she was drinking every day. A full bottle of vodka after each show. Drinking every day. A full bottle of vodka after each show. She kept it hidden well, but in 1980, she forgot lyrics during a show and nearly collapsed. She joined Alcoholics Anonymous in secret. Roger went with her to meetings. She got sober in December 1980. She kept repeating one line: God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. In 1983, Ann-Margret did something most people didn't expect. She was 42 years old and known for being glamorous. But when she played Lucille Frey in Who Will Love My Children, everything changed. Lucille was a dying mother with 10 children, and Ann-Margret had to show a kind of pain and love that went far beyond anything she'd done before. Critics said her acting was heartbreaking and real. She didn't win the